Vince Hill is an English traditional pop music singer and songwriter who is best known for his recording of the Rodgers and Hammerstein show tune Edelweiss, which reached number 2 on the UK singles chart. Along with a successful recording career in the 1960s, Hill hosted several hit TV shows during the 70s and 80s, including They Sold a Million, unregistered trademark, musical Time Machine, unregistered trademark, and his own chat show Gas Street, unregistered trademark. Early life: Hill first sang professionally in a public house called The Prospect in Margate, Kent, when he was 15 years old. But the decision to become a full-time musician came after he had worked as baker, truck driver and coal miner. Vince's first lucky break as a singer came when he read an advert in the Melody Maker which said the band of the Royal Corps of Signals needed a vocalist. He travelled to Catterick Camp in Yorkshire where the band was based. Did the audition and got the job. This offered Vince a way to do his national service as well as experience performing all around the world. After completing his military service he toured with a musical called Florodora, and he then became a singer with the Teddy Foster's Band, a big band based in London. At the beginning of the 1960s, he joined the critically acclaimed British vocal group, The Raindrops, which gave him his first opportunity to perform in television and radio shows, especially on the BBC radio show Parade of the Pops. The Raindrops also had in its ranks Jackie Lee, Len Beadle and Johnny Worth. After leaving the Raindrops, Lee went on to record the popular singles White Horses and Rupert, whilst Johnny Worth worked as a songwriter. By late 1961, Hill left the Raindrops for a fledgling solo career. His debut entry in the UK singles chart was the Van Dyke pen The Rivers Run Dry, which went to number 41 in June 1962. In 1963, he participated in A Song for Europe, the UK heat of the Eurovision Song Contest, with another Van Dyke pen song, A Day at the Seaside. The next few years proved fallow as a succession of single releases failed to chart. Success as a solo singer: in January 1965, Vince was offered an international recording contract with the EMI Group which signed him to their Columbia label. His first top 20 chart success with his new label came a year later with Take Me to Your Heart Again. Hill's cover of the A Pamela Dith Pie Fit, Love In Rose climbed to number 13 on the UK singles chart in 1966. Roses of Picardy, composed during the First World War, was another top 20 success, reaching number 13 in the summer of 1967. Further notable songs that he recorded included Heartaches, Merci Cherie, which was the winning song in the Eurovision Song Contest 1966, Love Letters in the Sand, The Importance of Your Love, and Look Around. The latter track, taken from the soundtrack to the film, Love Story, was another top 20 hit, but proved to be his chart swan song, reaching a pinnacle of number 12 in the latter half of 1971. His most successful hit was Edelweiss. This song, from the soundtrack to the musical film, The Sound of Music, was a number 2 hit in the UK singles chart in March 1967. Edelweiss was to become his signature tune for the rest of his career, that saw him top the bill at the London Palladium and Talk of the Town. His album Edelweiss was also a top 25 hit album for EMI Columbia. Although known mainly for his voice, Hill was also a songwriter and composed many songs with his musical director Ernie Dunstall. These were used on his studio albums and flip sides to his singles of the day. The Dunstall-Hill composition Why or Where or When, unregistered trademark, was also notably recorded by Mr. Lee Grant and topped the New Zealand charts in 1968, and I Never Did As I Was Told unregistered trademark was covered by Broadway star Robert Goulet in 1971. Hill's long-term recording contract with EMI Columbia came to an end in 1974, by which time he had released 14 studios albums and countless singles. In 1975, Hill signed to a new recording deal with CBS Records where he released a further 3 studio albums of contemporary song material. Hill also continued to perform regularly in clubs, cabaret and various stage productions. In 1976, Hill's life and career was celebrated when he was made the subject of an episode of This Is Your Life. During the 70s, Hill also made his DAR copyright but is a television host. His first series was for BBC Television. They sold €1 million unregistered trademark. Next was the hugely successful musical Time Machine unregistered trademark in 1977. Vince also hosted his own primetime television show in Canada called Vince Hill at the Club unregistered trademark This was also aired in the United States of America. 80s and 90s. From the 80s onwards, Hill concentrated mainly on his live performances and continued to play all the top venues around the world as well as appearing on cruise ships. He would also continue to make guest appearances on popular television shows of the day, such as The Golden Shot, Seaside Special, Rainbow, The Good Old Days, 3-2-1, Blankety Blank and Cash in the Attic. In 1982, Hill added acting to his CV, in the BBC radio drama, Tolpuddle. In 1988, ITV gave Hill his own midday entertainment show Gas Street unregistered trademark in which he made his DAR copyright but is a TV presenter and interviewer. The show also co-starred Suzi Quatro. In 1990, Hill took the stage to play Ivor Novello in the stage play, My Dearest Ivor. Hill also wrote the stage musical, Zodiac. Hill unregistered trademark as stage acting continued thereafter and notably included a starring role as the Cowardly Lion in an adaptation of the Royal Shakespeare Company unregistered trademark as production of The Wizard of Oz unregistered trademark. Later years, in 2004, Hill was diagnosed with prostate cancer and underwent successful keyhole surgery. A year later, following a routine blood test, it was discovered he also had chronic myeloid leukemia. Following extensive treatment, the illness was brought under control. In 2010, Hill published his autobiography, Another Hill to Climb, in collaboration with Nick Charles MBE. In April 2012, Hill came out of semi-retirement to make a successful return to the stage for one night only where he performed in a big band night at Ronnie Scott unregistered trademark S Jazz Club. Vince recalls it was an absolute success we sold out and I got a standing ovation. At that point, I just thought, unregistered trademark they finished, that unregistered trademark LL do for me unregistered trademark. In January 2014, Hill suffered the loss of his only son, Athol, who was found dead aged 42. Today, Vince and his wife Annie Hill, reside at their Oxfordshire home located close to the River Thames where they enjoy time with their 2 grandchildren, family and friends. Discography Original albums Ademi Columbia, Have You Met Vince Hill, Heartaches, Edelweiss UK albums chart number 23, Always You and Me, The Sweetest Sounds of Rodgers and Hammerstein, You Forgot to Remember, The Singer and the Songs, Look Around, 1971, In My Thoughts of You, and I Love You So, Ademi, They Sold a Million, The Other Side of Me, Thanks a Million, Sing a Song of C. Dakar, at CBS, Mandy, Wish You Were Here, Midnight Blue, at KTEL, That Loving Feeling, at Celebrity Records, While the Feeling's Good, Evergreen, at Grasmere Records. I Will Always Love You, at Music for Pleasure, Emmy, sings the Ivor Novello Songbook, at TNT, Forbidden Pleasures, at Pickwick Records, Real Songs. Live albums at the club, live album. Film soundtracks Cast a Giant Shadow, The Long Duel, Some May Live, The Railway Children, Under the Doctor. Compilation albums Vince Hill, collection of Vince's early solo recordings with Piccadilly Records, Little Bluebird, featuring several new songs, The Very Best of Vince Hill, His Greatest Hits, The Very Best of Vince Hill, The Best of the Emmy Years, Laurie Johnson's London Big Band, Volume 2, 2 songs featuring Vince Hill as a guest vocalist feature on this compilation, back-to-back hits, Vince Hill and Des O'Connor, Evergreen, Timeless Classics featuring re-recordings of hit singles, Vince Hill, The Ultimate Collection, Edelweiss, The Very Best of Vince Hill, a career-spanning box set of original hit singles and other highlights. Singles. See also, List of performers on Top of the Pops. Plays, Tolpuddle, Zodiac, My Dearest Ivor. References. External links, BBC Biography, official Vince Hill website. Discography, Vince Hill recalls his appearance on This Is Your Life. Biography and discography, Vince Hill at the Internet Movie Database.